Javier Millei, Argentina's new president, seems to be a solution, an anarcho-capitalist dream that can end the failed Argentine economy. But is it really the fix that Argentina needs right now? If it works, why wasn't it done earlier? And more importantly, why isn't it copied and replicated around the world? Hello everyone, my name is Scadi, and today we're gonna talk about the Argentinian prospects for the next few years. We're gonna make a few predictions up to like 20 years. So what can we expect up to then, up to around 2040? Okay, so this first episode is gonna be about dollarization, about Javier Millei's plan for the Argentine economy and the theory behind it. Okay, so I'm not gonna exactly go into the history of Argentina. If you don't know that, I recommend you go watch a video. We're just gonna go directly into the economic side of it. So Javier Milei mentions that to understand dollarization, first you need to understand the abolishment of the central bank. So a central bank manages the monetary policy of a country, basically tries to maintain conditions of high employment, low inflation, and to maintain good economic conditions for trade with other currencies. And its main tool to do this is interest rate targeting. The numbers I'm gonna give are representative, so I'm gonna have in the description exactly which months they correspond to, but they're just so you can get an idea of what numbers like unemployment, poverty, things like that are. As you probably know if you follow the news, the Argentinian economy is really bad. Just to give you an example, the rise in the annual variation of the consumer price index as of October has been of 142%, with the month before that of September contributing 4.4, so it's clearly on a distinctive trend to rise. But what does this mean for the average Argentine? Do their lives get 100% worse every year? Do they sleep on 100% worse beds? Of course not. But it does greatly affect them financially when it comes to purchasing power. And it basically slows down the economy tremendously. People stop buying stuff they don't need, they start buying cheaper stuff that they do need, and people go back to living with their parents. Parents begin living with their children, which is a pain in the ass. Nobody wants to live with their parents. That's why I'm making this video, but I digress. High inflation also means, according to this 2022 special report by the National University of Rosario, this report is called Our Inflation Daily, Real-Life Consequences. Moral and a psychological strain on the citizens, acting as an extra tax on every salary. And because this isn't a law, this isn't a normal tax, it doesn't act with the approval of the citizens of Argentina. Making a case for the illegality of printing money, but that's besides the point. So according to the report, this price dispersion is also unclear, so everybody is up to guessing the prices. Everybody needs to adjust constantly, so you don't know exactly how much you should pay or how much you should charge for your labor, making it very easy for people to make mistakes. And when you make too many mistakes, you eventually need an adjustment. And a change. Some of these changes can be immoral sometimes, so this creates untrust in the society. This weakens social relationships, it weakens institutions, and it creates inefficient resource management. So in general, people are much poorer and worse off. Now, I told you one of the things the central bank looks for is low unemployment. So according to the BEL, the unemployment of Argentina sits at around 6.9%, which is lower than their neighbors at the other side of the Andes at 8.9%. And as you probably see from the graph, it's because of a high amount of informal jobs at around 36%. In comparison, Chile sits at around 27%. So while it's clearly a more informal economy, it's not by that much. So people are working, just in a more unregulated, an unsafe way. People don't have a salary, so they don't have a constant stream of income to which to adjust their financial situation around, making for some more financial mistakes. What that we talked about. No legal backing for disputes, so, or at least it makes it much more difficult to resolve conflicts. So in this sense, we can say the central bank is working. It's keeping unemployment low, and people are obviously working in a more informal way, but they're earning money and they're getting bread to the table. So at least there's that. There's jobs and there's opportunity. Just a very precarious amount and a very small amount of opportunity. So understanding what the central bank does is key to understanding Millei's plan to take away its authority. It basically, the thesis is that the central bank has failed. That is theft. It's not working as intended. And it goes back to one of the things I said in the beginning, that the central bank looks for a stable exchange rate in the currency, and the peso has just dived in value. Millei says that one of his main reasons for abolishing the central bank is that stealing is bad, and I think it connects directly with the thing about inflation being essentially a tax without representation. Okay, so how do you abolish the central bank? So on a technical level, Millei refers to the thesis of Emilio Campos and Nicolas Kachanowski. Their work is a book called Dollarization, a Solution for Argentina Now. Now, I won't buy these books, mainly because I don't have 15,500 Argentinian pesos, which I could if you subscribed. But I could find an article by Kachanovsky and Adrian Javier that, along many other interesting topics, talks about monetary reform of flexible dollarization. So, meaning Argentinians can choose the currency they want. So, at the time of this document, Argentinians aren't allowed to save in any other type of currency. So they're slaves of a currency that quickly depreciates. They demand dollars to protect their savings. This makes the American dollar essentially a second de facto currency. But it is also possible for Argentina to use the US dollar, the euro, and the Brazilian real in parallel, and anyone can just open an account in any of these currencies. So the central bank should take all the pesos out of circulation and change them for the net amount of dollars it has. The money and the reserves that don't belong to the bank, such as private deposits in commercial banks, won't be affected. So all that money won't be touched at the beginning. So you just dollarize whatever the Argentinian central bank has in the treasury. Should be discounted from the total. Then you should dollarize what it's called the monetary base, or M0. This being the total amount of money created by the central bank. So the total amount of currency in the public, everything, all the money people have, basically. This also includes currency physically held in the vaults of commercial banks, leaving out non-cash assets such as demand deposits, time deposits, checks. Also, very importantly, the document mentions that the lack of dollars, it's not an issue. That the question is going to be mainly what exchange rate to use. So the theory is because all contracts are going to be redenominated to US dollars at the same exact exchange rate. As this currency would stop existing, there won't be an exchange rate, so it won't really matter. So now, with the elimination of the central bank, we no longer have a monetary authority to enact a policy and to affect financial conditions. So okay, just to recap, Millei's plan hinges on the fact that the exchange rate won't matter. So forget about the whole Argentina has a few dollars. How much does the um, peso costs and goes for, because there won't be an exchange rate. So next we're gonna go to dollarization in other countries like Ecuador, which I think is a better example than countries like Panama or El Salvador, because they're Caribbean nations, and because of the economy size and more cultural proximity, honestly. In fact, Millei himself has said Ecuador is an example of successful dollarization. And it definitely helped the country in terms of stability. After the crisis Ecuador had in the latter half of the 90s. According to this article from the BBC, the Ecuadorian economy is highly dependent on the price of oil. And looking at this graph, it's no wonder it helped the country, allowing for an influx of foreign currency. Here you can clearly see the anarcho-capitalist nature of Millei's plan. Basically, politicians are so incompetent and corrupt that there's just the better plan is to submit completely to the woes of the market. And with agricultural products being Argentina's main export, being close to 56% in 2018, does seems to be a really good idea. For example, the price of oilseeds and vegetable oils has generally risen, especially with the war in Ukraine, who produces a lot of sunflower seeds and oil. So it doesn't seem to be a bad idea for Argentinians. But what exactly is the social cost and the social toll in all of this? So in Ecuador, the news, funnily enough, only mentioned that the social consequences were great, without further explanation really about what this means. So I searched for research on the matter and arrived at this document from the Revista de Finanzas. It analyzes the effects of dollarization, and it mentions the prediction that poverty would increase is just wrong. In practice, during dollarization and even faster later, poverty decreased fast. In 1999, 52% of the population was below the poverty line, and in 2016, this number is at around 17%, so a 35% decrease in poverty. But what about the immediate effect? So apparently it was a very painful process for Ecuadorians. A lot of people were left in financial ruins. A lot of people fled because of debt, in search for jobs in dollar economies so they can send money home. In fact, remittances is one of the country's main contributions to the economy. So we can assume it's gonna have a similar effect for Argentina. But just to give you an example, poverty was at around 69% in the 2000s in Ecuador, and it was at around 61% in 2000, and it dropped further to 60% on. So I think dollarization is the right path for Argentina. It would leave the country at the winds of the international markets, but because Argentina main exports of oilseeds, cereals, and meats don't seem to be things we're gonna need less of in the near future or in the medium to long term future. So you can expect a similar effect than in Ecuador. You could argue that Ecuador had with oil a similar thing that Argentina could have with agriculture. I predict the economy is going to be fine. It's going to be unstable until everybody finds out how much everything costs and how much dollars people are going to have access to and be able to exchange and at what rate. So this is going to come down to Millei's plan of having a fixed price. This is going to be key. This is going to be a huge change in the economy, and it's probably going to come with an immediate increase in prices. But it's just going to be in the short term. It's going to make life very difficult at the start, but the price are gonna be stable. So slowly the economy is gonna catch up. So expect an end to the hyperinflation. You can expect a price stability. You can expect the unemployment to maybe rise a little bit. But in the long term, things are gonna equalize. They're gonna find a balance, and we can hope that in the next 20 years, people are not gonna look back at this in a bad way. They're not gonna regret it. And looking at Ecuador, they don't regret it. So this is probably one of the things that it's gonna help Argentina the most. It's gonna be one of the things Millei is gonna be remembered for, and if it manages to do it without the country descending into chaos, he's gonna be able to really stabilize everything. Okay, so thank you very much for watching, and have a wonderful day.